Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the second video in our series to configure a Tier 3 Active Directory Certificate Services or ADCS. In today's video, we are diving into how to prepare our web server to host our certificate distribution point or our CDP and authority information access or our AIA information. Um, it is really important that we host our CRL and our AIA information on a different server than having clients to reach out to our CA for this information. And the reason why organizations do this is to isolate our CA from the internet basically, and also offload some of the work that is going to be performing, um, and only allow it to issue certificates to users and devices within our organization. Now, before we continue the configuration, um, I need to explain what CDP or Certificate Distribution Point is and AIA or Authority Information Access. The CDP is where clients can download a revocation list of any certificates that has been revoked. For every certificate that has been issued to a user or a device, there's going to be an endpoint or a URL that tells clients where to download and validate that certificate hasn't been revoked. So in our lab, we are going to build something similar to that. We are going to have, for every issue certificate, we need to have an endpoint where clients can download and validate the certificate hasn't been revoked. So a CRL will contain all, or at least revokes certificates from the CA itself. If the CA revokes a certificate, it's going to publish the revocation to our CDP location. The AIA or Authority Information Access basically provides the location of the issuing certificate authority's certificate. This is basically where clients can download the certificate of the issuing CA. So this web server is going to host our offline routes CRL and AIA information, and also host our offline intermediate CRL and AIA information, and also host our domain joint issuing CA's CRL and AIA information. Now, I am running on Windows Server 2025, and we are going to install Windows IIS to host our website. So to do that, we are going to open Server Manager. Oh, well, before we go into that, I haven't joined this web server to our domain. So I'm just quickly going to join this to our domain. Remember, in the previous video, we configured Active Directory Domain Services and also mentioned that that same server is going to be our DNS server as well. So I'm going to double check to make sure that our web server can make a DNS inquiry to our DC01. The IP address for DC01 is 172.0.0.2. I'm just going to double check that one more time. Going to do IP config, and we can see the IP address is 172.0.0.2. So the DNS of our web server, or the DNS services that our web server should be talking to, should be 172.0.0.2. I have a firewall, a PFSense firewall that I have configured DHCP services on, and I have listed 172.0.0.2 as the DNS server. So whenever a device that connects to my PFSense firewall, it should receive an IP address and also have the DNS configuration as well. So if I do ipconfig all, we can see under DNS servers we have 172.0.0.2, and then I have 172.0.0.5, 172.0.0.3. Those are going to be my DNS servers. For now, I only installed 172.0.0.2, but I have in the future in mind going to configure these 3 servers. Okay, so now I'm going to join this server to our domain, because at the moment it can talk to our domain controller. So I'm going to join it to our domain. Also, I'm going to change the name from this generic name to web server, and then the domain is going to be hippolabs.net. I'm going to click OK. It's going to ask for my domains administrator account password, so I'm going to put that in here. Okay, so now we have joined our web server VM to our domain. So I'm going to restart it, and we can install Windows IIS role on this server. Okay, so my web server VM has restarted successfully and also joined to our domain. Now I'm going to log in with our domains administrator account. Okay, so we are going to install Windows IIS or web server IIS on this machine. It's a role that we can install, so we're just going to do or follow the same procedures that we followed when we were installing Active Directory domain services. So we're going to open Server Manager, and we can click Add Roles and Features. Well, I'm going to give it some more time. I'm going to click it one more time. Okay, I'm going to click it one more time. Alright, so I'm going to click next, next, and next, and next. Now we want to make sure we're selecting web server IIS, and then add features that it needs for this role. Then click next, next, next. Just going to skip everything else, and then click install. Now, whilst this is installing, I also want to create the directory where the CRL and AIA information will be kept. I'm going to put this under my C drive. I'm going to create a folder called set enroll. If you want, you can create any, you can name it any way you want, but I want to name this set enroll. Some organizations will just name it CDP, but I'm going to name this set enroll. Now, this set enroll folder, this is where we're going to be publishing our CRL and AIA information. For offline CAs, we will have to manually copy the information and then publish them under this directory. However, for domain join CAs, they will usually, you configure them to have network access and sharing permissions to this folder so that they can directly publish the CRL to this location. I mean, you can use a script to copy the CRL information to this location if you want, but you don't want to complicate things for yourself. You want the CA itself to just publish the CRL information to this location since it's going to be online. I'm talking about our issuing CA specifically, which is going to be an enterprise issuing CA. So I am going to share this location. I'm going to go to properties and I'm going to click share and then advanced sharing, and then I'm going to click share this folder and permissions. I am going to grant set publishers. I'll talk about that. I'm going to give set publishers full control to this directory. Now, set publishers is a group that contains all the CAs within our domain. Usually when you create an enterprise CA, whether it's going to be a root CA that is an enterprise CA, they will get added to this set publishers group. You can manually remove them from the group if you want, but they're going to be part of that group. So I'm going to be granting this group instead of granting our issuing CA server the direct permission. I want any other CA that we built in this lab to automatically have the permission to publish to this location. That's why I'm not singling out just the issuing CA server itself to grant it the permission. So I'm going to go to the security tab and I'm going to click edit, and then I'm going to grant that set publishers group one more time. I'm going to give it, you can just give it modify permission, but I'm going to give it full control to this directory, and click apply and then OK and then close. Now this grants our issuing CA that we're going to configure later on in the lab the permission to be able to publish directly to this location. When configuring our issuing CA, we are going to define the name of this server and this directory on the CA to be able to publish to this location. Okay, I see that our web server IIS role has been installed successfully, so I'm going to close this out. And now if we go to tools, we can see IIS and open it from here. Okay, so now we are going to create a virtual directory, which is going to be the directory where our CRL and AIA information will be hosted. So I'm going to right click on default website and add a virtual directory. I'm going to name this set enroll. In the path, we're going to navigate to the set enroll folder that we created, and then I'm going to click OK. Now we're going to allow default directory browsing. We're going to allow that or enable that. Okay, so our set enroll directory has been created on our IIS server. However, there's one thing that I want to mention. Now, if we go to, let me go to our domain controller itself and try to access webserver.kipolabs.net. I'm going to go to our DC01. And I'm going to go to our web server IIS website. So if I go to web server .kipolabs, it should take us to the default website of our IIS. Now I don't want to use webserver.kipolabs.net as our CDP and AIA URL. For an enterprise environment, you want to be more specific because you're going to have different web applications within your environment. So I want to use a more generic name that is related to Active Directory Certificate Services. So I'm going to use pki.kipolabs.net. This is the URL that I will be embedding into our certificates. So when clients want to reach out to our web server for our CRL and AIA information, they should be going to this website instead of going to webserver.kipolabs.net. However, at the moment, this is unreachable, right? So we are going to create an alias or a CNAME on our DNS server. And for us, our domain controller is our DNS server. So I'm going to open Server Manager and open our DNS configuration and then create an alias or a CNAME from here. So I'm going to double click on DC01 and then I'm going to click forward lookup zones and kipolabs.net. I'm going to create it here. Now I'm going to create a new alias or CNAME by right clicking on Kipolabs and then select new alias or CNAME, and I'm going to name this PKI. So when someone goes to pki.kipolabs.net, where should it point to? So we're going to select our web server from my domain. Okay, so basically what we did here is when someone goes to pki.kipolabs.net, the traffic should be routed to webserver.kipolabs.net. Now if I go back and refresh this web page, we should have the same we should have access to the default website of our IIS on our web server VM. So I'm going to refresh this. Now when someone goes to pki.kipolabs.com, it takes them directly to webserver.kipolabs.net. Right? Okay, so basically that is it for configuring and preparing our web server to host our CDP and AIA information. I will see you guys in the next session where we will be configuring our offline root CA.